Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Mouse PI, a game that is more known, I think, at this point for an IGN review than the game itself, which is utterly incredible. That is nearly everything I've heard about Mouse PI. I was going to play Pragmata. They sent me the code and stuff to play it. I did some of the early testing on the demos and stuff with Pragmata with the developers. But now I got to the night before we were supposed to play Pragmata. People were waiting for it. And I was like, I just don't feel like playing that game right now. And I saw Mouse PI and I was like, that looks more fun. And I just felt like having something fun, especially coming off the back of Bully, the Rockstar game. So I was like, I want to play Mouse PI. Now, I tell you now, I was not aware of this review from IGN. It obviously came up in my chat a lot, but I was like, I'll tell you what I'll do is I'll check the review after I play the game. And I have done that, so hopefully that video is on the TDP channel somewhere that one of the teams uploaded, because I did react to it and talk about it. But let's talk about the actual game itself, ignoring what was in the review, because who cares? This is my review. Mouse PI, what is it? It's Looney Tunes, as close to Looney Tunes as you can possibly get, really. It's not made by the Cuphead devs. A lot of people were like, is this made by Cuphead, guys? No, it's not. This is, you take on a mouse in a mouse world in Mouseburg as a private investigator. And essentially, it is an homage. One thing I'll say about this game is there is all the way through it, right until the very, very end, of which, let me just check here. How many hours did I play this for? 22. I got 22 hours out of this game, which, according to my achievements, is like 3/4 of everything. And nearly every minute or so is the devs showing the love and joy that they took from games growing up. And movies and media. It's filled with references, absolutely filled with them, and many times for me that gave me a chuckle. Going back as far as Conan the Barbarian, I was like, is this for real? We're like quoting Conan now? Troy Baker's the voice of our mouse friend. We'll put it out here, the voice acting is far better than it even deserves to be for this silly mouse game. But essentially, Mouse PI is a Looney Tunes version of Doom. That's what it is. It's a Looney Tunes version of Doom. Because you're not a detective. I think that's probably something that I didn't disagree with everything in the review. I was confused at the start as to why everybody was trying to shoot me all the time. I was very confused. I was like, wait a minute. Why is suddenly everybody just like shooting at me and trying to kill me and stuff? And you kind of got to go, because it's a Looney Tunes cartoon, almost like a kid's dream of being like a James Bond type character. That's the way I looked at it. It very much felt like that, like wacky races and stuff like that. This is what you would expect to see on a Saturday morning cartoon a long time ago. Is it just escalates from 0 to 12 in a fraction of a heartbeat, and you either go with that and you're having fun because the gameplay and the gunplay is far better than it should be. Far, far better. Like I say, this is basically Doom. Like the Doom 2016 versions. It's not quite up to that level, right? Doom 2016 was phenomenal and some of the best gunplay there is, but it's bloody close, especially when you unlock your wild arsenal of weapons, and you have a lot of weapons. You'll have everything from a shotgun to a brain in a jar that will do all sorts of wacky, nonsensical things. And you can swap with them on a heartbeat. A lot of them reload if you don't have them up for a second, so you can just be constantly firing. There is very specific counter weapons that are just far, far more effective against certain enemies than others. It's not perfectly balanced, I would say. Stuff like the Tommy gun, or the James gun as it's called here. James gun. Hey. The Tommy gun and the acid spitter, the devarnisher, because it removes varnish from things. Are generally just much better than everything else for an all-round toolkit, but there was use for every single weapon, pretty much. The only ones I didn't really utilize out of the, I think there's 9 or 10 weapons in the game, were a freeze ray and the brain in the jar, because they just, by that point, my weapons were like fully upgraded and were just generally more effective than using those other weapons. I imagine if I'd invested in upgrading those newer weapons, because you get them quite late in the game, they were probably very, very good. I just didn't need them at that point. I was already like very, very powerful and very strong because I had big upgraded Tommy guns and shotguns and rocket launchers and things like that. So I was very good. But you talk about swapping weapons on a dime. Like you're constantly cycling through weapons in order to utilize what is best for this occasion and manage ammunition. You can't carry tons and tons of ammunition. So you will run into periods, even though they're abundantly supplying you with ammo, where your weapons will run out. Unless you're scouring every secret, of which there are hundreds of secrets all the time. Like, the game itself is pretty linear, but the map design, and I gave special credit during the actual credits of the game, real big shout out to the level designer from this Polish team, because the level design is really good. Very interwoven, lots and lots of shortcuts and loop backs, constantly cycling around, secrets that make sense, not stupidly hidden ones, or a couple that you're like, I wonder what this does. The only issue I ever ran into with level design is reasonably regularly, if you went to a certain point where a set piece was supposed to occur, it would lock the door behind you to trap you in the room to prevent you kiting around. Very similar to basically what Doom's horde attacks were. If you've played Doom, you will know you would do something like rip out the heart of a hive, and you will do a sort of like horde invasion, and until every enemy's dead, you can't progress. So it locks you in the room to do that. That had this here, but generally it came like when you had branching paths, so you could go left or right. And if you went right, it would lock you in, and you can't go back even after the event's finished because it's moving you forward, and left was a secret. So every now and again, I would have to reload the save and go back through to do stuff. Lots of optional missions on the side, which was cool. So you get a mission to go to a various area of the map, or go and ride a boat or a plane or something like that. And then it would also ask you to do something else, which added a bit of flavor to it. Maybe a guy's wife is cheating on him at a fancy party, or someone's snorting cheese, because cheese is like alcohol / drugs. It's kind of ubiquitous for both, depending on the type of cheese. It used to be prohibited, so it was very much like the bootleggers of old who were running alcohol through the US during Prohibition. They're cheeseleggers who've been smuggling cheese in. Cheese is acceptable now, kind of, but I think it's certain flavors of cheese. So, like, if you've got like a blue Stilton, that's hard stuff, man. That's like a little out there. That's like your cocaine. But cheddar, the cheddar's going to be just having a beer at the pub, right? You get the idea? So you have to be a little wary of that, because it's cheese puns throughout. Lots of cheese jokes. Nearly everything is related to cheese. Again, it's a cartoon. That's what you're playing. You're playing a Saturday morning cartoon. And if you're into it, you're going to have a great time. Really good. I will say, overall, I was very happy with this. The sadness is you're not a detective. The cases solve themselves because it's basically a linear story. So you're not actually doing any solving. I would have liked that. I would have generally liked to have pieced it together, because the story is quite intriguing as to what's going on. It starts off with a case of a missing magician and takes you through a whole political sphere, missing startlets, backstabbing and murders most foul. It takes you through all that, but you don't actually solve that. It's mission after mission after mission, and then the case will kind of solve itself. It's really just a shooter presented in a really interesting package, along with some side games. It's got like a baseball side game, which I didn't delve into, as I never do with the card games that are buried within these games. I'll just spend my entire life playing cards, but it was fun, a little baseball game. That was cool. Very interesting characters that I wish I'd actually done a bit more with. Certainly when it got political and we deal with the politicians, I was like, this guy is definitely up to something. Also tackles some pretty heavy subjects, but this cartoon veneer, I think, will probably mean that a lot of people just don't pick up on it, and that's fine, because it doesn't, like, there's definitely Nazi involvement, and instead of Jews, they're smuggling the shrews, right? You get the idea. And then they present them, without getting too spoilers, the shrews are being like kidnapped and trafficked and sold for some reason. And when you find out what that reason is, you're like, holy crap, this is grim. This is really dark, but it's done in a cartoon fashion. So I think a lot of people won't really get it. Most of you will, like I expect, but there will definitely be some people who are like, oh, okay, and not really thinking about the real dark undertones of what the hell is happening here. Very, very, very messy. One thing that was very, very exciting for me, if you, I've heard a lot of people say the first hour and a half is a little rough. I can see where they're coming from, because I said the start of the game doesn't make sense. The way it's presented to you, and then suddenly everybody's opening fire on you, and you're actually in a Doom game. You're like, this doesn't seem to fit. And you're right, it doesn't. But considering the rest of the game works that way, and once you accept it in the first sort of 50 minutes, it's like, oh, okay, everywhere I go, there's going to be people shooting at me. You're fine. You're going to be on with it, because the gameplay is very fun, and what you're doing is very fun. Lots of puzzle solving, jumping around, a lot of parkour. But by the end, they've done that sort of Dark Souls thing. If you've made it this far, and you're having a good time, we're going to get real weird with it. And they do. They get very, very weird with it. And I, for one, really liked that, because you're about, 18 hours in or whatever. And you've done a lot of very cool stuff, from very haunted mansions, again, all inspired by old cartoons. You've been on the steamboats, you've been to the swamps, you've done all these League of lunatic asylums, you've done all this kind of stuff, and then they're like, all right, now we can get very weird. If you're here, we can get very, very weird. One thing I knew they were going to do, and I'm going to spoil it here, so if you don't want this spoiler, it's very minor, and nothing related to the story, then just know that I think this game is worth. It's good. I give it a high B. Almost an A, but a high B. Like I say, the beginning doesn't make much sense, but you get a very fun shooter out of it. It's because it's all black and white, and it's all this cartoon style. I was like, I absolutely guarantee they're going to do something with color later in the game. I almost got that Tale of Two Brothers vibe, which is like they're going to do something weird at the end, and they do. Didn't go really far with it, but they do. So look forward to that, because it's really fun. But Mouse PI, check it out. Bye, everybody.